Gave me a chance I would take it. It's a shot in the dark, but I'll make it. No, with a little hope, you can't shake me. When I am with you, there's no place I'd rather be.
Hey uncles, it's me again, surprisingly still alive and back with another video. From the title, you can see this is a bit of angst and fluff, inspired by so many fanfics I read when I scrolled through IwaOi in my free time and noting down writing prompts. I tried my best to not let this contain any heavy triggers. Personally, this is also something I went through for the past few days, so I tried choosing the proper character and pair to write this with. Unfortunately, Oikawa has to be the victim once again because I'm an Oikawa-kin derogatory. I'm sorry if this is bad. It doesn't have as many details compared to my other videos. It's been more than a year since I last wrote something, and I don't exactly have the motivation to do stuff anymore, so I kind of wrote this half-assed, but hey, at least it's something. So yeah, that's it from me. Without further ado, enjoy the video.
Oikawa couldn't keep track on how much time had passed since this feeling started. One day, he just opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling, but he couldn't move. He can't bring himself to, as if his limbs are completely attached to his bed. He hated this. The sickening emptiness, eating away whatever little feeling is left within him. This wasn't the first time he felt this way, but each time, he managed to gather up his last remaining strength to get up and go on with his day. However, this time, he couldn't find anything. He was tired, and every inch of his body felt numb. Only the softness of his blanket touching his skin brings him the comfort he needed. His surroundings appeared cold. There was no sound aside from the ticking clock on his bedroom wall. His parents weren't home, there was no one to check up on him, and it felt so fucking lonely, but he was unable to care. His eyes were weary. How long did he sleep? 14 hours. 15. But Oikawa wanted to sleep again more than anything. He's so exhausted, it was as if he could no longer muster up any strength to breathe. Everything felt heavy, and he has no idea how to lift whatever weight is present under his skin. Time was either frozen or flying too fast to his liking. He was trapped in his own head, circling around the words, "I'm tired," a repetition that never seems to end. He knew he should be getting up. School, his friends, and his volleyball team is waiting for him, but he couldn't even spare them a single thought. There was only one thing he could think about. Is there a point to all of this? He tried everything, but nothing seemed to be moving forward. It felt like he was stuck in the same place. No matter how much he gave it his all, he received nothing. He hated feeling helpless and lost, but it gnawed at his insides. The heaviness made him nauseous. Is it his fault? He simply wasn't great. He's not talented enough. He doesn't work enough. He was good, but never enough. He tries, and tries, and tries, yet it felt like he was chasing something unknown. Each time he tried to grasp it, it easily slips out of his fingertips. Instead of getting closer, it felt like the distance between him and his goal was growing further apart. Pointless. Everything felt so pointless. He closed his eyes. Pathetic. You're absolutely pathetic, Oikawa. The brunette could hear his phone vibrating on his desk again, and he ignored it. The sound is annoying, but lifting his arm to turn it off seems like a lot of work. It took half of him to not throw it outside and hoping it breaks. He knew that his friends, teachers, or his parents might be calling him, but again, he didn't care. He could just pretend he's sick, coming up with whatever easy lie that pops into his head once he's finally back to his usual self. His eyes slowly fluttered open when he heard a faint knock at the front door. A visitor. Oikawa. He recognized Makki's voice almost instantly. Oikawa, are you in there? It was Mattsun's voice this time. He shut his eyes closed as he sank further into his blanket, brushing off whatever guilt he's having for being unable to answer them. He really can't do this today. After a few more call-outs of his name, there was silence, and he was certain that they had left. Good. This is how it should be. No one should ever see him in this state. It was pitiful, shameful, disgusting. He would never let anyone see him when even he felt repulsed by being in his own skin. All he could do now is pass the time by watching his ceiling. He didn't know how many hours went by before he heard an aggressive knock on his window. Oikawa frowned. Someone is knocking on his window. His room is on the second floor. Which crazy bastard is willing to climb to his window? His mind came to a halt as realization hits him. Of course, who else? Oi, Shitikawa. I know you're in there. Open this right now. He could hear his childhood best friend's voice loud and clear, but all he could do was pull his blanket to cover up his entire body. He's not dealing with this, not today. But when it comes to Iwaizumi, some scenarios can be unpredictable. There was a click on his window as he heard it slide open. Did Iwaizumi just break his window's lock to get in? Yes, he did, but Oikawa wasn't surprised. Oikawa, what the fuck is wrong with you? You can't just not attend school and never informed any. Iwaizumi finally stepped into his room, and his hard expression softened the moment he spotted the other hiding under the blanket. This time, his tone was much gentler. Hey. Oikawa didn't answer. He couldn't, nor does he want to. Oikawa, I know you're awake. Please. Still no answer. Iwaizumi almost thought he couldn't get through him and opted for another plan, but then he heard a small quiet answer. What? It was flat, short, blunt. Even Oikawa was surprised at how raspy and dry he sounded. It was only natural. The usually cheerful person didn't talk for days, nor did he drink much water. His head slowly came out of the blanket, and Iwaizumi made eye contact with the awful lifeless gaze. Can I come closer? Oikawa was silent for a moment, seemingly contemplating the best answer. You can do whatever. Iwaizumi seemed content with that and walked closer before sitting on the bedside. He slowly reached out his hand to see how Oikawa reacts. The other male faintly nodded, and that's all it took before Iwaizumi gently caresses Oikawa's hair. You didn't go to school for 4 days. Oh. When's the last time you ate? Oikawa didn't answer, and Iwaizumi didn't scold him over it. Let me get you some warm water first, okay? Oikawa nodded, watching Iwaizumi leave the room and returning with a glass of water. He also grabbed something from the table. Here. It's milk bread. It's still warm. I brought the soft ones on the way here. He held out both items, and Oikawa could only stare. The thought of eating seems tiring, even with the sight of his favorite food. The brunette looked away, but Iwaizumi wasn't going to take no for an answer. He held the glass close to Oikawa's lips. Go on. You don't have to hold it. Just swallow. Oikawa was reluctant, but with Iwaizumi's help, he eventually forced himself to sit up and drank a few gulps of it. His throat gradually felt much better, but he didn't have the time to think about that because of the small piece of bread already in front of his lips. He sealed his mouth closed. For once, the sweet and delicious smell of bread wasn't appetizing. Oikawa, you have to eat, at least a little bit. What if you'll no longer have strength to even play volleyball? So we won't be able to win without you. With or without, what's the difference? His tone was bitter, but Iwaizumi couldn't blame him. Out of everyone he has ever met in his life, Oikawa was the most ambitious, passionate, and hard-working person, but he never got the achievement he deserves. Oikawa, what do you want from me? I want you to eat. Please. You need to. None of us want you to get sick. Oikawa averted his gaze. Iwaizumi makes this situation so damn difficult. Why is he here anyway? He has no obligation to take care of him, especially when he's in this state. He knows he's hard to deal with right now. Although hot-headed, Iwaizumi has always been a patient person, but it's still unknown how much patience he has when it comes to this. He let out a small sigh, coming to a decision. If he eats, Iwaizumi might finally leave him alone. So he parted his lips, and a second later, his tongue could taste the sweetness and soft texture of the bread. All his resistance from before slowly but surely washed away. He truly missed his favorite food. He couldn't believe he had almost forgotten the taste of it. He swallowed it down and opened his mouth again. Then another small piece of bread filled his mouth. Throughout the process, he was unable to look at Iwaizumi. How could he? His best friend is feeding him while he still looks so miserable. Shame was swirling in his head, making his stomach churn. Just after a few bites, he finally looked away, and Iwaizumi ate the last remaining piece. How many times did this happen? How many? Oikawa couldn't remember, or rather he didn't care enough to recall. Does it matter? Just go. I need my beauty sleep. I'll be my usual self again soon. See you at school. When he was about to cover his body with the blanket again, a hand suddenly grabbed onto his wrist to stop him, and his breath hitched. It was as if a big warning sign was blaring in his head. His first instinct was to roughly slap it away, leaving both of them in different state of shock. Don't. Oikawa's voice has never sounded so cold, and he stomped down on another hint of guilt in his chest. Why is he still here? He knew Iwaizumi's worried, but he really doesn't want them to see him like this any longer. Just leave. I don't need you here. Maybe if he hurts him enough, Iwaizumi would finally leave. It's not like it's anything new. Oikawa is a jerk, so being able to treat others like shit comes naturally. The problem is, Iwaizumi knew him since childhood. They watched each other grow and had been the one who shaped them into who they are now. Iwaizumi can easily see through his act. Yes, you do. Start gathering up strength to get your ass up, Shirikawa. You also need a bath. No, I can do it later. And when exactly is later? It's not in your damn vocabulary. It's not like being considerate is in your vocabulary either, Iwaizumi, yet here you are. Iwaizumi sighed. Again with the words that Oikawa would never mean. You can't be like this forever, Oikawa. Yes, I can. No, you're letting yourself rot away. Why do you care? Because I'm your damn best friend, that's why. Just go. Leave. He didn't. Instead, Iwaizumi just scooped Oikawa up and threw him over his shoulder with ease, holding onto the other's hip in a tight grip. The brunette gasped. The sudden pull from his blanket suddenly made him even more vulnerable, but he was too shocked and angry to act on it. Iwaizumi was touching him, his disgusting skin. He didn't like this, at all. Let me down. Oikawa writhed in his arms, struggling to set himself free. Unfortunately, in terms of physical strength, Iwaizumi is way stronger than he is. Absolutely not. Iwaizumi answered, starting to walk to the bathroom, and Oikawa squirmed wilder. Let me go, you asshole. Jerk. Mean. Bully. Useless, good-for-nothing prick. I fucking hate you, insufferable obnoxious bastard. Insults that Oikawa never knew he could utter was spitting out with ease. Although some of those are things that might describe Iwaizumi, it was directed towards himself more than anything. He didn't care though, he was desperate. Iwaizumi didn't respond, simply tightening his grip onto Oikawa. No. I don't want to, leave me alone. I'm tired, please. Oikawa's voice cracked as he cried out. Tears were slipping through his eyes, slowly rolling down his cheeks. Upon arriving, Iwaizumi gently settled him down on the closed toilet seat, and he could finally see Oikawa's pained expression. I can't do this, Iwa, I can't. And Iwaizumi knew he wasn't talking about the bath. The male kneeled down on one knee, his fingertips tenderly wiping the tears that was falling. Oikawa. Toru, look at me. His tone was soft, and the hands on Oikawa's cheeks felt so warm. The brunette finally looked at him properly before their foreheads were gently pressed together. He closed his eyes, taking in the comfort this gives him. You're not going through this alone. I'm here, okay. I'm not leaving you alone, ever. We're going to go through this together, like we always have. Do you understand? Upon listening to those words, Oikawa could only sob harder as guilt began to swallow him whole. He felt so fucking horrible, the worst person to ever exist. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry, Iwa. He choked on his broken apology, and Iwaizumi's benign hold on him didn't waver. If anything, the gentle caress on his cheeks stayed longer than he expected. I know, Oikawa, I know. You didn't mean it. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Hey, I told you, it's okay. I'm not mad. Forget about that, we're just going to get you into the bath, okay? Right. He's not alone anymore. Iwaizumi's going to help him get through it. And with that thought in mind, Oikawa nodded. Okay. Iwaizumi stood up, leaving Oikawa to zone out for a while. He filled up the bathtub with warm water while making sure the temperature was right. Aside from the sound of water, there was a comfortable silence between them. It didn't last for long. The bath was ready, and Iwaizumi strode closer to Oikawa, kneeling again to keep the same eye level. Can you do it on your own or do you need my help? There was no hint of condescension in his tone, only a simple kind offer. I can do it on my own. Okay. When Iwaizumi was about to walk away and leave the room to give Oikawa some privacy, a small tug on his shirt stopped him from walking further. Don't go. Iwaizumi stared at Oikawa who was looking down on the floor, and he lightly sighed, a tinge of fondness slipping through. Okay. I'll be right here. He turned around, and he could hear the soft fabric sounds from behind him. Meanwhile, Oikawa, who still had his boxers on, slipped into the bathtub, closing his eyes as he relished the warmth. For some reason, it wasn't awkward between them. Taking a bath together was normal, especially for sports team. But here and now, there was a strange level of intimacy, especially after the vulnerability that Oikawa had shown. Still, it didn't affect whatever consolation they give to each other. Iwa-chan. Yeah. Oikawa paused. Is it wrong for him to ask for help this time? He did refuse and said he could do it on his own. However, before he could take back his words, Iwaizumi spoke. Need my help. Sometimes, he wondered if Iwaizumi can truly read his mind. Yes, please. Iwaizumi approached Oikawa, crouching and resting his arms on the side of the bathtub. Hey. Oikawa looked at him, and they maintained a strange yet comfortable eye contact for a short while. There was confusion in Oikawa's mind. Iwaizumi was giving him such a deep, meaningful gaze. He thought he knows his best friend all too well by now, but he still can't interpret the meaning whenever he gave him that particular look. Iwaizumi broke it by ruffling Oikawa's hair before grabbing the shower arm to wet the soft yet messy light brown strands. Oikawa stayed still, allowing Iwaizumi to do his thing without a single complaint. He shut his eyes closed to prevent anything from getting into them, relaxing at the way Iwaizumi massaged his scalp and felt the warm water slowly washing the shampoo away. But the moment Iwaizumi's hand touched Oikawa's shoulders, the latter flinched slightly, and it was barely noticeable how he had inched away from the touch. Thankfully, Iwaizumi has a keen eye when it comes to Oikawa. You okay? I can look for something else to clean you up with. Oikawa shakes his head. No, I'm okay. Just a bit surprised. Iwaizumi stayed silent, waiting for him to continue. It's disgusting. What is? Me. How come? Just look at me. I'm a mess. I'm all over the place. I can't do anything right. I'm a lot of work to deal with. Aren't you sick of me? Now who said that? Silence. Iwaizumi began to slowly and gently wash Oikawa while distracting him with the newfound conversation. Sure, you're a mess. Everyone's a mess in their own way, but I'll never get sick of you because of it. Besides, you tried annoying the hell out of me every day, but did I ever get sick of you? A chuckle was stuck in Oikawa's throat. Yeah, he really does like pestering Iwaizumi. Like I said, I'm here, and I'm willing to help. I won't let you go through shit alone. If you cling to me for no reason every single time, then I have the right to do the same to you. Iwaizumi glanced up to Oikawa. He couldn't see his expression, but he continued to gently scrub the latter's soft skin. Aren't I a bother? Don't you ever get tired? Even I get tired of myself. Oikawa didn't understand why he's opening up to Iwaizumi out of all people. How is it that this guy always managed to tear down the walls he had built for himself? He never liked sharing his feelings. The only genuine and raw emotion he had ever shown was when he almost punched the hell out of Kageyama. That happened a few years ago, and Iwaizumi was there. And now, he's still here. No. Straightforward and simple, but Iwaizumi's blunt self felt the need to spare a few more words. You're not a bother. Even if you are, you can bother me as many times as you want. I will never get tired of you. How do you know that? Oikawa couldn't see how Iwaizumi opened and closed his mouth multiple times before settling on a vague answer. I just do. That's not very reassuring. I doubt you need reassurance. Right. Words meant nothing to Oikawa. He just needed someone to be here. Alright, you're all done. Can't I stay here longer? If you stay here longer, then you can only dream of getting back to your comfy bed. Don't you want to go lie back down? Fine. Good. Now give me a minute, okay? Iwaizumi left and returned with a towel and a set of clothes, placing them beside the sink. Need help again? No, I can do it this time. You sure? I'm not a baby, Iwa. Iwaizumi chuckled. Sure. Be careful to not slip. I'll be back as soon as I can. Iwaizumi closed the door, and Oikawa carefully stepped out of the tub, drying himself with the towel before putting on the new comfortable clothes while sitting on the closed toilet seat. He leaned back, focusing on the dim and only source of light in the bathroom. Oikawa couldn't move anymore. Bathing was enough to drain all of his remaining energy for the day. There was a knock that came from the door, before Iwaizumi cautiously entered. Kawa. he hummed, which caught the other's attention. Oh, you're finished. Iwaizumi stood in front of him, drying the brunette's hair using the towel that was already on his head. Oikawa felt bad that his best friend had to do everything, but he knew the former wouldn't back down even if he told him that he didn't have to do this. The towel was put aside as Iwaizumi put on a satisfied expression. There. Come on, can you walk? Oikawa shakes his head. Okay. Before he knew it, he was lifted into a strong pair of arms. This time, Oikawa didn't refuse and instead, wrapped his arms around Iwaizumi's neck and hid his face on the other's broad shoulders. All good. When Iwaizumi felt Oikawa nodding, he finally brought his best friend to his room. Fortunately, when grabbing some clothes, he thought of changing the bedsheet and grabbing a clean blanket. At least Oikawa can rest comfortably now. He lied Oikawa on the bed, smiling down on the other before he attempted to stand up. However, he could feel himself being pulled down, and Iwaizumi helplessly tumbled, resulting in falling beside Oikawa. Don't leave. He mumbled into Iwaizumi's chest. A part of him snickered. Truly, what a hypocrite. He was the one who wanted Iwaizumi to leave in the first place, now here he was, begging them to stay. Iwaizumi played with the strands of Oikawa's half-dried hair. I'm not leaving you. Good. You know you'll get extremely embarrassed once you're back to your usual self, right? I don't care. That's a problem for future Toru. Iwaizumi laughed. Of course. Now try getting some rest. I'll be here once you wake up. Do you promise? I promise. Oikawa snuggled closer, burying his face further as he felt the calming steady beat of Iwaizumi's heart. The corner of his lips twitched up. This is better than being alone, and Iwaizumi Hajime always kept his promise. Slowly, he drifted off to sleep, and Iwaizumi stared at the boy in his arms, admiring how pretty he looks even with the dark bags underneath his eyes. Ever so gently, he pressed his lips on Oikawa's forehead. Good night, Oikawa. With the moonlight shining through the window, no one could see how Iwaizumi's comforting hold on Oikawa made him subconsciously smile. As long as they have each other, everything is going to be okay.